Hey guys, it's Mario here, and in this video we're gonna go over why diets fail, why most guys fail their diets, why do they never reach that goal, why do they never get a six-pack and get that lean, ripped looking body that they really want and they have set a goal for themselves, but they never really reach that. So why is that happening? What are the main reasons? And I've kind of broken this down to two main reasons that just by looking through my emails, through my Facebook comments, YouTube comments, like all these different sources, I've kind of broken it down to two main reasons why most guys fail their diet. And starting off with the reason number one is something I see as the most common mistake with dieting is really labeling certain foods as good or bad. So let me present you a scenario, right? So you're on a diet and you want to lose a pound of fat per week. You know that you need to be in a caloric deficit to lose body fat. And you know that to lose a pound of body fat, you approximately need to be in about 3,500 calories of a deficit per week, right? So you kind of recalculate that, okay, that's a 500 calorie deficit per day, 7 days, bam, you know, you have that 3,500 to lose that pound of fat. So that's kind of a starting point, right? So you start from there. But when most guys, what happens, you know, they have no problem sticking to that 500 calorie deficit for like 5, even 6 days. But then on that 6th or the 7th day, they run out of willpower, they get tired, you know, they get frustrated, someone pisses them off, something just doesn't go as they planned. And let's say they have a cookie, right? They have that cookie. And now they're thinking, well, fuck, you know, this cookie isn't part of my diet, you know, I've been sticking to my diet for 5-6 days and this cookie is just not it's a bad food, it's harming me, it's causing me like all these health issues, making me fat, and now my diet is over. So I had the cookie, and realistically that cookie could be, let's say, a 100-calorie cookie, right? So you didn't fail your diet, right? If you objectively look at it, you still have 3,400 calories of a deficit that week. But no, I mean, the guys that took the cookie, you know, he got the 100 calories and now he's like, oh shit, my diet is over, and that one cookie turns into eating the whole bag of cookies and then eating some other junk food, and that's adding 3,000-4,000 calories, and now you no longer have that caloric deficit. So essentially you haven't failed the diet in that first step, you failed the diet with the follow-up, with that chain reaction, because you kind of made it in your mind that there's this list of good or bad foods, and we had that bad food, you were looking at the food, you weren't looking at the nutrition, right? So when you have food, when you have a cookie, when you have any chocolate or anything, that's just a caloric amount, right? That's just a specific amount of calories. So 100 calories or 200 calories or 300 calories is not a big deal. You know, if you have a meal and you went over and you misestimated the amount of food that you're getting, you know, that's not a big deal. You still have, let's say, 3,000 calories of a deficit that week. You know, that's still an enormous amount of body fat loss, and that's still you being on a diet. But the problem is when you're kind of shifting that mindset, and now it's no longer, oh, well, I'm not on a diet anymore because I had the 100 calories, and you're in your mind is like not 100 calories, but it's like you had a bad food, right? That is not on your list. And that's turning into that chain reaction where you definitely do blow your diet because you've just let that escalate. So the diet took control over you, it took control of your emotions, and you've kind of shifted from an identity of a person who has control over their nutrition to an identity of a person who is like, okay, my diet is over, I'm no longer dieting, and now I'm just like YOLO. And that identity presents different actions, and those actions give totally different results compared to a person who has slip-ups. And I mean, you guys watching this video, I'm not sure if you actually heard about it, but anybody who ever dieted to that 6 to 8% body fat, they have slip-ups, man. Like, it just fucking happens. Everybody is human, but they just don't let it turn into a chain reaction, right? Having a cookie, a chocolate bar, or some random meal, you know, it's fine. It's 100% fine, because if you've done your work that week, you can afford to make a couple of slip-ups here and there. You know, it's not a big deal. But the big deal is like going into that mindset of like, oh shit, you know, I blew it, and then that escalates into you actually blowing it. And this is something I see with a lot of guys. This is the biggest mistake that I see with a lot of people, and that's holding them back from really achieving that six-pack. And then that turns into kind of an identity. Well, fuck this dieting thing, it's not for me, you know, forever bulk mode, YOLO, I'm just gonna eat and I'm gonna get big, you know. And I know that inside of themselves, like these guys, they want to be like they want to get that six-pack, they want to feel proud of themselves, but simply a couple of those failures, you know, it escalated and it just built that identity. Okay, fuck this dieting thing, it's not for me, right? So that's the mindset number one. The mindset number two, it's a really big one. That is your feeling that you have control over the diet, or that the diet has control over you. Because we as human beings, whatever we don't have control of, it can actually inflict a lot of negative emotions on us. So if you feel like the diet is actually controlling your life, right? You're missing out. You can't go out with your friends. You can't have any food you want. You have to like exert massive amounts of willpower to maintain the system, to micromanage all these foods, all these things, and you have no room for like experimentation, no room for pleasure or anything, you're most likely going to fail your diet. And they actually did studies on rigid versus flexible dieting, and the flexible dieting always won in the long run, because most people, they will actually, quote unquote, fail at a certain point to micromanage all these little things. And those who had the rigid mindset, they turned that into that YOLO mode a lot easier than those who had a flexible mindset, because even a little bit of a slip up wasn't a big deal for them. So the difference is the control, right? So people had a sense of control, and they actually did a very fascinating study with this, is that they took a group of people who were already dieting for a while, and they just told them, well, look, for next week, you're no longer on a diet, right? You're not on a diet anymore. So you have a week off dieting, so you're not on a diet anymore. Take a holiday, take 7 days off. And most people, I mean, most guys watching this video would assume, well, these people just went fucking all out. You know, the doctors told them, you're not on a diet anymore, you just go nuts. What in the end happened actually, that none of these people gained any weight, right? None of them gained any weight. They maintained their weight that they've gone with the diet to that point. They just maintained it. Some of them even lost weight because they started eating a lot more food, and what happened is that they flushed out that excess water weight that they've been absorbing for a while, because the cortisol level was quite high as they were dieting down, and they had that stress from being in a caloric deficit. So when they went to maintenance levels, you know, these people didn't gain any weight. They actually flushed out the weight, the water weight, and they feel great. And they just continue dieting afterwards. So it's a fascinating like research study that's saying, well, look, I mean, there's really nothing except the control, that feeling that you can actually control the diet, and that gives you the power and gives you that ability to not fail, because you're thinking, well, I have control, right? I didn't fail, I have control. And what I suggest with this is really having those regular diet breaks. That's the biggest difference. And not just, I'm not talking about physiological as gonna like do any massive difference. I mean, it does help like recover some of those hormone levels, some of those like physical strength levels and all these other things, but it really gives you psychological control over the diet, because you can say, hey, well, look, I'm gonna have a diet break every 7th or 6th or 8th week of my diet. And what that gives you that power, because you're going to maintenance calories, now you're in control. The diet is no longer in control of you. You have maintenance calories, you know, that's a lot of food, and you feel great. And you can kind of feel like, well, it's planned, you know, there's a deadline, there's a time and a period where I'm no longer dieting. And that's the power, right? You get the power from that. As you're no longer dieting, now you're just living. You don't have to stress about it too much. And then afterwards, you want to go dieting again, you just go dieting again, but you set up another deadline when you're not dieting. So people will go through hell if they have a deadline, if they have hope that there's going to be some exit point, you know, that there's going to be some time when you're just going to go out of the diet, right? So one tip, like there's a book from Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning, right? A lot of people who, I mean, I'm not going to compare the the concentration camp in World War II with dieting, but I mean, a lot of people that survived the concentration camps, they just had hope, and they found meaning in surviving because they had hope that there's going to be an end to this. The end is going to come. There's going to be an end to this camp, right? So we're gonna make it, and we're gonna make it for a reason. So when I mean, it's a stupid. I know it's like a lot harder to actually survive the fucking camp than just lose a bunch of weight. But if you look at it, and as a human being, it's really about having that end. You had that end in mind. You know that it's going to end at a certain point, and it makes it a lot easier for you because you set up deadlines. You know, these are my diet breaks. I'm still in control of this thing, and that's going to give you massive help with sticking to your diet. Additionally, you want to set up refeeds, and you want to make sure that those refeeds match some kind of social gathering. I see that this is a massive help with my clients. If you say, hey, there's a social gathering, you want to make sure that you go out and you have something that is not self-prepared, right? You have a meal or two a week that is not self-prepared by you or anybody else, that is not a diet quote-unquote food, right? Just have something with your friends, right? Just go out, have a pizza, have something, include it in your calories, but make sure that it's enjoyable and that you're not just going out for food, but you're actually using food as kind of a tool to connect with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones. Go out on a date with someone, use that opportunity to make something great out of it. And that's something that gives you more control. And I found this very, very helpful. And the diet, this doesn't change the physiological profile, like the hormone levels and all that stuff. The short-term refeeds aren't enough to kind of reverse those negative adaptations, but they give you that psychological break that you're still in control, that you still have this, and that you still got this, right? So that's a big difference there. So hope you guys enjoyed. These are the two biggest these are the two biggest mistakes that I see guys often make, and that's why their diets fail. And I believe that if you fix these, you have an extremely high chance of reaching a goal. I would say it's pretty much bulletproof if you just don't blow it, if you just accept the failures, like the mini failures, and just plow through. It's a huge, huge difference. And this is the mindset I've used over the years to stay pretty damn lean over the last couple of years. So hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below if you identify yourself with any one of these mindsets, and if you see that you are making these mistakes, or some of your friends who made this mistake, or just get stuck or trapped in one of these mindsets. So let me know in the comments below. Aside from that, make sure to hit that subscribe button to support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.